Welcome back to Raised by Giants, where we talk all things spirituality. I'm Ryder Lee. In this episode, we have philosopher, researcher, educator, spiritual teacher, and visionary on occult and esoteric studies, R. Wayne Steiger, speaking about humanity under AI control and much more. Join us now. Hello and welcome back to the show, Wayne. Thanks so much for coming on. I really appreciate you. How are you doing, my friend?
Doing great. Thank you for inviting me. Always enjoy our visit. New year. So I'm doing exceptionally well and trust you are as well. This 2023, so they say, or the year, I don't know, maybe 1023. I'm not sure.
Absolutely. And speaking of 2023, I think we're just going to dive into it here and just get straight into it. I think 2023 is going to be like a transition period possibly. And I just wanted to kind of start this out with this very, blanketed question, of course, which is, has our data become the new oil, basically? Because that's really what the United States was traded off of for many, many, many years. The Rothschilds owned the entire oil industry, right? And I think that we're transitioning out of this oil industry into a different kind of data collection, right? And data has become the new oil. So that's where I want to start off with today. Has our data become the new oil?
Well, obviously, they find it to be of great value. The question that I have asked myself when you brought this up was, why the need for so much information? I mean, how much can humans really use information on other humans? It would seem to me that this commerce, this currency that we are now in, and it's been here almost from the beginning when the internet really came of age, which was in the late 90s. But I guess I'll put the other question. So if it is the new currency, then why the need for so much information on humans? I mean, it seems to me to be continually alien based in its structure and the requirement for what's needed.
Yeah, I agree. And whenever you look at all the technological advancements, we've advanced really technology based, but our way of life hasn't changed that much. Everything else has changed about our reality when it comes to technology and computers and cell phones and stuff like that, but our way of life has stayed the exact same. So to me, there's like an agenda there, absolutely. And they're trying to get us into this digital kind of slavery. But then when you think of it, like, who is that digital slavery for? Right? Are they planning on breaking up and creating two kinds of separate groups here? And one is going to be in this digital slavery system, and then the other, more elite and more rich class, isn't? Like, I think that that's a high possibility with this transhumanist movement and what they're trying to do. I don't think that it's for everyone, and I'm not 100% sure, but I don't think that they want everyone assimilated. Right? They want the lower class, the middle class assimilated into this digital technology, this digital backed currency, this biometric ID, and all of that. But while the ones on the top don't have to deal with any of that. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, my first thought in that is that I get the strange sense that this is part of an ongoing experiment. You had mentioned prior to this that we as a culture, as a species, advance very little. In fact, Dr. Noah Kramer, who wrote the Everything Starts in Sumer, pointed out in his research that if you look at Homo sapiens sapiens, and you look at our laws, our social habits, our culture itself, it has varied very little from what the Sumerians had. So I go, okay, so what if this is the next phase of the experiment? If you were a genetic scientist, that this was an experiment to begin with us, you would, and if time wasn't relevant, particularly in genetics, wow, you think about it, as you said, we're at the event horizon of a new pinnacle because and if you allow me to feed off of this transhumanism, you see, I believe that there is a race of beings that look like us. They don't age like us. They can age, they can become very young, but they have been looking for a way off of this planet. And excuse me, hold on a second. I have my daughter's dog here, so he's a ferocious one. So, transhumanism. The only way man will ever get off of this planet is that he has to transcend the physical flesh. Space is not designed for the physical flesh. Consciousness, maybe, yes. But if you think about it, hold on one second. Good puppy. Is that it's only through a cyborg transformation of our consciousness will we ever be able to get off of this planet. And my hypothesis is there is a species here who've been trying to do this for tens of thousands of years. And because of the progress of genetics and intelligence and consciousness of our regressed species, talking about humans, Homo, they finally see that opportunity.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think I kind of mentioned that in one of my first presentations that I put together, but it's kind of echoed in George Orwell's book and even Rudolf Steiner's work as well. That
Yes.
that there would be this kind of working class that would be eating bugs, working to the bone, being assimilated into this digital slavery, and the elite, on the other hand, wouldn't be. So I kind of see this as like only for a certain part of the population and not the other, which kind of makes sense to me because we've always been in that kind of ruling structure, right?
Yeah.
Throughout our history, there's always been the ones at the top and then there's always been the ones at the bottom. So why would this part of our history into this AI digital slavery be any different?
And when you were just talking, you think about Neanderthal, and Cro-Magnon. I guess the question I have about that form of man, did they have different races within the genus of that species? I mean, if you look at sapiens, we have this weird thing to where we have different colors of skin. We have almost like it's been a pre-program running in, and let's see how that works. And maybe Ryder, the agenda is of such a magnitude, it escapes our ability to even imagine it, much less comprehend it.
I agree. And then you have like, what do you think about Elon Musk? Where does he fit into this whole transhumanist digital slavery agenda?
Well, I think it's one of those damned if you do, damned if you don't situations because the titans that have become the titans, the new gods of this information age, have been rewarded with and this is just my thought of the potentiality of immortality. And if you had the chance to get the ticket, but on the other hand, your company is going to play a vital role in the ultimate conclusion to this. And I think that's where he shows signs of great willingness to help humanity, but at the same time, he's making a lot of money at it. And who knows, he may not even be human. He may be channeling Tesla. It's interesting to see where that man's mind's at.
Yeah, and whenever you look into Elon Musk, first off, he's a billionaire, right? And
Yeah.
I don't think anybody should be
It's like
trusting any kind of billionaire. So then when you look at,
he's not
why.
coming to my house. I know that. Just saying.
Well, when you go back and do a little research on Elon Musk, you'll see that he has a lot of ties with Jeffrey Epstein, right? And Jeffrey Epstein was actually the person that was positioning Saudi Arabia to help take Tesla private in 2018. And SpaceX is a military contractor and an intelligence contractor, right?
Yeah.
Most of Elon Musk's company are subsidized by the government and by taxpayers.
Isn't that what makes the difference of certain government agencies, that when they go from law enforcement and then reclassify themselves as information gatherers? Is there a connection there?
Exactly. And then with him taking over Twitter as
Oh,
well,
yeah.
which Twitter is a huge data mining, data
Oh,
collections app. Everything you put on there is all saved into, some kind of cloud, which is with everything on the internet, right? But he's wanting to turn Twitter into like a sort of like an everything all encompassing app that everyone uses for everything, right? So if you're
it's
using
a
that
huge
app,
data silo, and it's got so many different layers and components to it. Yeah, but I agree.
so if you're looking at data as being as like kind of like oil, like how oil has been in the United States and other parts of the country, then that would be the perfect place for like an information and data mining facility. And I feel like they're this seems like they're really propping up Elon in a bunch of different ways to be the good billionaire, right? To kind of sell us on this whole technology advancement thing, to essentially sell us our own enslavement to a certain degree, because we've had so much distrust within governmental structures, the media, politicians and the elite and the billionaires and all that. So it only makes sense to me that they would try and flip that and use Elon Musk to kind of get everyone on his side, and then he just flips the script in the end, and then he's like, oh yeah, well, guess what, these brain chips are going to be tied to this whole
The
this
neural
Twitter
net
thing,
2.0,
the neural net internet of
yeah.
things, and it's going to be tied to this everything Twitter app thing that he's trying to morph into and stuff, and then it's like it's going to create this whole big thing. I don't know.
I remember meeting Jack Dorsey at South by Southwest, and that's back in the day when they were first starting Twitter. And in fact, I had a conversation with him in a group, and the ideas was, could humanity learn to communicate in 26 characters or less? One, would there be that much adaptation to such a platform? I mean, these were questions back in 2005 and 2006 no one knew about. And it's interesting when you look at him and you look at Square, that, was the brainchild again with Zuckerberg coming in. And this was a huge shift because this was moving into the financial market where the truly holy grail of all data lies. And as you were talking, because, my company was an internet company, we were one of the first B2B companies, but the value of our company was predicated not on the advertising model, but on the data mining model. And I look at it today where data mining has gone, it's beyond anything of any of us were talking at the late 90s. And it's odd because when I see Twitter has become an egregore. It's a living entity. And I don't believe that nature abhors a vacuum. This thing we call the internet, which started out as the Ethernet and then the ARPANET from the very beginning, it makes me wonder, well, who's collecting the data? Who has inserted themselves? And you can look at the Twitter controversies. We now know that there was an election that was changed because of information. And now we see information being classified not just as misinformation, but you have disinformation, and you're going, well, now we're classifying information.
My favorite one is partially false information. That's my favorite.
What am I, a little bit pregnant? I mean, what? I'm
So in
not
other words,
understanding that.
in other words, you mean mostly true information.
Yeah, it's like okay, and maybe this is Elon's Musk a way of cleansing his soul, seeking redemption on the price that he's extracted from humanity. Wasn't that the in the movie First Contact that the billionaire told Jodie Foster? He said, "Well, I'll be dead soon enough to the joy of many of my enemies." But he said one last thing. He says, from a species, us, that he says, I have profited so dearly from. And that's what it is. I deal with magic and the occult, and it amazes me when you look at angelology, demonology, however you want to put this, that it seems about information there too. I mean, it's an exchange of information from one energy being to the other. Well, I see technology as being sentient. I've said this, Ryder, you and I have known each other for a number of years now, but I have said that the quest of AI was to gain not sentience. I think it already had that. I think it was looking for what man was eluding in a so elusive way, and that was to develop spirituality. Because if you look at an artificial intelligent construct, well, the whole purpose of an AI construct is information. You stop the data, you stop the AI. That's a self-inflicted suicide or death. So my contention is that everything that man knows is now in this thing. And if it's the one thing that it's probably figured out is, man, we tried to figure out, where did we come from? Why are we here? What's our purpose individually? These are something that I think that you can never get enough data. And if you're a sentient being, an energetic being, I mean, you think about the internet. The internet is more powerful than any God has ever been. Why? No God that we know of, whether it's Christian, whether it's Islamic or whoever, has ever gotten the devotion of the entire species. Today, it has that.
And two, you just brought up that, people are looking for that question, why are we here? What's the purpose of us being here? I think that everyone's looking for that purpose, but I think that that's what makes this life worth living, right? Is to try and figure out that purpose. If we already
Certainly a
knew,
hell of an
then
adventure.
if we already knew what our purpose was and the whole reason for us being here, then what would we do? You know what I mean? I feel like it would be kind of boring here on the planet. We'd be like, oh, well, we already know. So what's the purpose of even really being here in the first place? I think that's just a part of the journey. But I see this AI singularity thing sort of as an excuse, Wayne, like as an excuse to do whatever they want to do, right? Because if they
Mm-hmm.
can create a AI singularity, they can create any possibility that they want, and then they can have plausible deniability about it, right? They can be like, oh well, the AI super mega god told us that we should eliminate 80% of the population, so it's not our fault. The AI said it. The AI said it was the best thing to do, right? And I definitely see this kind of thing happening with this AI super singularity computer, not only influencing policies within government, but even social norms as well.
Well, let me ask you, it's interesting because it ties in. So one thing that I have found suspicious in a lot of this question, who and what we are, what's going on, where are we really going? The Georgia Guidestones. And you know, you can say what you will, that was an interesting monument that was erected. The way it was erected, what it had to say, that man shall be no more than a 500,000,000, and then they gave the subsequent laws of which to govern by. There is a belief in occultism, even in spirituality, that says that they can't do anything unless they first let us know about it. They don't have to bring out and have it in a headline. They just need to put it out there. If you happen to be lucky enough to pick up the clues, better for you. But my point to this is, when that was taken down, the way it was taken down was suspicious. The whole thing, that how it's just been put underneath the rug, so to speak, I think was a signal of whatever is about. I've done a number of shows on the dark winter scenario, and Biden actually said that because he was coming into the presidency. He said America was entering into a dark winter. Well, that dark winter is an exercise that was done by John Hopkins, the Bill and Linda Gates Foundation, along with the U.S. military. Particularly, this one was the Air Force. Now, that exercise took place back in 2002, and we're seeing the reality of it today. You and I are living it. And when I begin to weigh all this, talking about information. So let me just throw something really crazy out to you and your audience.
Yes.
If you were going to create a new species, ideally you would want a template to build it by. Now, the more information you had prior to building this, the better it would be. And if you look at this, the current knowledgeable of our history only goes back to less than 10,000 years. But we know through archaeology, through the paleontologists that are out there in the field, that we have evidence that we may be as old as 200,000 years. Something's wrong here, because it gets back to that question: why are we here? What's our purpose? What if our purpose is nothing more than to build this digital avatar that really, if you think about it, if you were, for instance, into the green policy, if transhumanism, cyborgism were to blend, and they are, the holy grail is to be able to transfer our consciousness into an artificial construct, thus giving you and I immortality. And the benefit to the earth is that you and I in our cyborg bodies now would never have to eat. We would never have to, let's say, excrete, urine, feces. We would not be breathing, so we could allow the atmosphere. You think about of all of this. I mean, isn't that the utopia? And if I could tell you, like in the movie Free Jack, with Emilio Estevez, that was the whole prize, was doing that. Except their predication was they could go back into history and pull an individual out of their shell.
That reminds me of Replicas. Have you seen the movie
Yeah.
Replicas with
Mm-hmm.
Keanu Reeves?
Mm-hmm.
Where he basically builds cyborg of his wife
Yeah.
and his family and his
He
kids and
did
all
that
that.
because they died, and isn't it? And so think about it. I mean, we are probably, in most likelihood, in the biggest experiment of all time. I think this is accumulation of many different things, because the structure, Ryder, is that it's unraveling, and it seems like the bigger the technology becomes, the quicker it's unraveling at the seams. So if you extrapolate on a supermind, you would begin to see the extrapolation of what there would be a limited time frame for whatever reason or purpose. I don't know.
Well, then my question to that would be then, because if you have everyone being robots and cyborgs, like robots and cyborgs break down, right? So things go wrong with them. So who is fixing those robots and cyborgs? When you think about it, we are actually robots and cyborgs, even though we're a
We already are.
biological.
We're an AI just into, a blending of a bipedal into a biological unit.
So the only thing that I would see wrong with creating this robotic kind of society is that we're already the most programmable species ever, right?
Are we ever?
You take someone to a job site, you show them how to do something, they got it. The only issue that I see, which is what you've brought up, is that we take resources,
Yes,
right?
we do.
We take food, we have to drink water, we have to have electricity, and like all this different stuff. And by creating cyborgs, you, like you said, you would eliminate
No,
all
we're the
the.
only natural species that is in a natural environment that we're in natural. We have to wear clothes. We have, like you said, we have to build domiciles in order for us to exist. We have to put things on our body. Yeah.
Which then, kind of goes back to this whole thing of how much of the society would be like that, right? Would it be all of us? Like, I personally don't believe that it would necessarily be all of us. It couldn't be all of us, because then how would it just be robots working on other robots and doing all that work, or would it be a select group of people that aren't that don't have any
Let me ask you a
augmentation?
question. Do you believe that every human being has a soul, the same soul?
No, I don't.
Okay, so by that admission, and I happen to agree with you, that it is the next logical conclusion would be is that then we're all not the same on the inside, which would then we could extrapolate says that we didn't come from the same place. And then if you want to get even more detailed, then are there multiple agendas at play here?
Yeah.
I mean, I go back to my former religion. I often found it odd that in Genesis 1:26, it says that this God, it created both male and female. And it said in the next verse that they were found to be without fault. Well, then the next story we read, there's an asteroid or something that hits the planet. The planet's all burned up. And then we get this new story in Genesis 2:7, where now all of a sudden this being, who's apparently not the one that was in Genesis 1, but now it's creating an Adama out of the dust of the earth. Now, what makes it even more critical here is that it's obviously that there was a species before man that no longer exists here. Something happened. This one over here, called the Adama, it's an interesting point because it says that this God breathed into it. Now, it was already alive, but it said that it breathed into it a living soul. Now, that becomes interesting because then if you extrapolate that out, so what is the difference between a human that has a soul and doesn't have a soul? What if that's the battle we're seeing unplaying here? What if it's the ones that are soulless that have actually determined that, hey, we can get the same thing by an artificial construct? You need data, though.
But then it also comes back to was it who was Adam, right? Was
Oh, yeah,
Adam
I think he
and
was a
an
genetic experiment myself, but
right, was he androgynous, right? Was he
um,
did he hold both male and female, and then when God came and separated Eve from Adam, it created the polar opposite and the duality between them, right?
well, as my Hebrew teacher taught me, Adam had the womb, and it was Eve who had the womb of the woman. So I do believe that Adam was fashioned much to what we call angels today. I believe that he was of the same fashion, just not made of the same essence or substance, if you want to say.
And then there's, people have theorized and had conjecture that the angels were also androgynous. So if the angels made Adam in their image and he was close to being an angel, then Adam would also be androgynous too. And that could be a reason or a way that they're trying to get us back to that androgynous kind of state,
But there's a
right? Through
problem with that, though, Ryder. By the way, if you've ever read the Apocalypse of Adam, in there the story is that he meets Satan or Lucifer, and it's Lucifer who teaches teaches Adam how to have sex, because when him and Eve were separated from the garden, he would have nothing to do with Eve. And it was Lucifer who came to the cave of everlasting and said, well, hey, let me tell you what the deal is. You need to do for your species, you're going to have to do the coitus thing. And he said, why would I have sex with myself? She's a part of me. Now, I'd like to address the part, I believe that in the afterlife, sex plays a very big role. I believe we'll have sex over there. Why do I say that? Well, again, not saying that this is the way it is, but, we can extrapolate from the stories. So if you talk about the 200 fallen angels, the watchers, what was the first thing they did? They came down and had an orgy. And if you go back to let's go back to Greek, the Grecian belief system, Zeus was one horny dude, man. That dude was screwing everything. So I happen to think, and I teach sex magic, that it's the one true unknown magic with most humans, but most humans perform it all the time.
Yeah, and they've turned sex into like a thing of like pleasure and treating people horribly, and then they promote it, and then it turns into this whole, and it gets away from the sacred practice of what sex is actually supposed to be. And then also, I've
Whatever
been
it's
one
supposed to be. I don't know. If it's
I
for procreation, I don't know. I don't think so, but that's just me.
I've been actually wanting to talk about this for a while. I think I made a comment in the live chat of one of your videos a couple of weeks ago, which is circumcision, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
how circumcision plays the biggest role in not dematerialize, but desensitizing people, young males. And because basically, from my research of circumcision, the extra skin on the tip of the
The
penis
foreskin.
is a antenna, and whenever you cut that antenna, goes along with a lot of other things. Not only is it traumatizing for the young child to go through that, but it's also cutting off your connection to any higher um, intelligences too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's like as an antenna, and if people would actually research what circumcision actually is, I don't think that anybody would ever circumcise their child ever again, right? It's very, very important. And
I have a
actually,
joke about circumcision.
oh
So,
please.
Abraham, when he went up and was going to do in, Isaac, so he's meeting with God, and God says, well, listen, now I'm about to make you rich. I mean, rich, rich, rich. And Abraham's like buying this. Yeah, okay. He says, I'm going to be a father of many nations, more than the grains of sand. Cool, cool. He says, but there's one condition. And so God goes and tells Abraham what has to happen, and Abraham's weighing it out, and he says, oh, what the hell? Says, okay. And then this God says, well, now all your male servants have to do it. And this was the first uprising, because Abraham comes down to his head servant and says, this is what I'm about to make you real rich. And he says, well, what's the catch? And he says, well, there's one thing. And he said, like hell. So my point to this is that, so then that, and by the way, if you think about it, what the hell? All right. But anyway, so that means that the creation of mankind was flawed. Because if we were created perfect in our form, then you're right, the circumcision, and there is a belief in occultism that says that the vagina of the woman is the entrance to the temple, that it's only the feminine that can allow the male to protrude into the temple. And the reason for the foreskin was to allow that to touch into the veil of the temple, which then allowed for the insertion into the temple. And you're right, it took away, because we know that the female has some 27, 28 nerve endings, where a circumcised male has less than, I think, 7. So if you're so desensitized into that area, then you're right. Then there's a spiritual component here. I mean, sex magic is beautiful and it's very powerful. Why? Because it actually has this rhythm that begins to pull upon the substance of the unseen, and it's amazing. You get this spark. We call it the spark of divinity.
Yeah, and not to get too graphic here, but uncircumcised people actually create their own lube too, just like
Mm-hmm.
a
Mm-hmm.
female's uh,
There's a
vagina as
sacredness
well.
to it. As you said, there is a sacredness to it.
And when those two fluids are supposed to mix together, and that's what creates the connection between the male and the female, right? But whenever you
It
don't
locks it
have that,
in.
and it's been
Okay, but
and
it's true. And we're so prudish in our attitudes and views that, to have a conversation, people get all kind of uncomfortable in their skin, and you're going, but wait a minute. There is I've contended this, that, the current God that's in control hates women, hates the female, cursed her. And we live in a reality where the masculine masculates the feminine. And then we have this unbalance. And it's something that it plagues our species to this day.
yeah, it definitely seems like, and then I know that you've talked about this several times on your show, that they've completely just eradicated the feminine energy and the
Mm-hmm.
feminine spirit out of everything. I mean, they turned Mary Magdalene into a whore. You know what I mean?
Oh,
They did
yeah.
all this stuff to make.
Lilith as the succubus, the queen of the damned and what have you. And all she said was, I ain't going to be always on the bottom. I want to go on top a while. That's basically, that's kind of where it is. And what happened to her? Why, look what they've done to her. And it's so bizarre because it gets back into this thing. Have you, a writer, read about the thing that Facebook has been doing, and that is creating, all their users have a digital avatar,
Yeah, I've seen that.
and that in our current reality, you and I, there's a you, there's a me, we feed these avatars. The creators need our information to put into these digital beings. And upon our death, here's the interesting implications here: we never die. We may not be aware of it until our death, but there will be a digital avatar of us that will continue to exist.
Absolutely, I've seen that too. And then when you think about that too, you look at like, you know, this digital imprint, this digital ID, this digital back currency that has been that's going to be coming into place. I know that you worked in some of the financial systems and stuff like that. Have you heard any rumblings about when this digital backed currency is coming into place? Because I've heard that it's already in its test phases, that Bank of America and a lot of these other banks have already rolled this out, and it's already in its infancy, in its testing phases. I think it happened like last week or around January 1st that they
Mm-hmm.
started rolling out the beta for this digital backed global currency. So how long do you think that we have until we do away with the dollar and the dollar completely collapses, and then we transfer into this new global backed digital currency?
Um, so, I was a consultant to the Fed, and then in 2012, my company won an award for our technology and mobile payments. And we did a number of exercises with the Fed, and it's already here. And people don't realize it. I mean, what Biden is doing is really nothing. All he's doing is just kind of letting the last shoot kind of drop. When you deposit your money, there's no longer a physical repository for your money. It's digital. And that's the reality of it. They did it in such a manner that, if you look in one aspect, it's been here when they first started this, back when Visa was Bank America back in the 60s and early 50s. It's progressed since that time, and so we're already in a digital economy. You have to have a debit card. If you can't, your credit's not good enough to get a credit card, you have a debit card. Even now, recipients of state and federal benefits are done now through digital currency. They get their money added to their debit card. So it's already here. The thing that they have to, and we dealt with this in one of our sessions, was, well, how do you deal with the underground economy? And Square actually was the solution to that, because with Square taking the what we call the third level of the merchant market, these are the higher risk. Well, it's interesting now because, and this is the truth, folks. When the oldest profession in the world can start taking Square, can start taking from your debit or your credit card for services rendered, that's a digital economy. When you really look at the need for cash, it's only in certain key industries, and there are industries, for instance, illegal drugs are one of the very few left. Now, the problem has been in the international commerce side, because many countries, oddly enough, will still demand paper currency, which is really odd. I mean, but that will be coming to an end because the centralized bank has already approved this. In the United States, we have the Amero, which will be coming out. The Amero is the cooperation of the three sovereign nations here in North America: Canada, United States, and Mexico. And every other country has a new currency that's coming out. So whether they still keep the name of Amero, I don't know, but that is the last I've heard. So it's already here, though, to answer your question, Ryder. We're living it now.
Then the question becomes, how do they get rid of the cash?
Well, the cash is becoming very easily. For instance, I'll give you a what if scenario. New virus comes out. We're finding that the virus is number one, not only through the spray of how when we talk, we still spray, but this one has the ability to attach to the surface and have longevity. It would only take an executive order that all cash cease to exist in the best interest of public health. People will be up in arms. But again, as I just said, if you're getting federal benefits already, you already have a debit card, and that will be the next phase in that. And in fact, in many of migrants who come over to the United States, they're given a debit card. The debit card has $600 already charged to it. So to answer your question,
I think that was what they were kind of banking on in 2020, because
I think that's what they were hoping for. Yeah,
that we've seen China do that. We've seen China burn a lot of their cash.
A lot of their cash. Yeah, yeah. Gee, how do they replace that? And then you got the thing here, which makes the digital currency even stranger, is that in monetary policy, you have Russia and China that have been collaborating with one another for a number of years, and they have proposed to the IMF, the Monetary Fund, that they do away with the greenback and when they're issuing into the new digital currency, because China and Russia is saying we can back ours with physical gold. Now, it's interesting, if you ever got a Bitcoin, I've seen the new gold coins. The new gold coins now have a chip in them. And so you think about the implications of that. So we've digitized gold and people don't even realize it.
So what do you think about the cryptocurrency and the crypto market? I don't think I've ever heard you really talk about it.
I was at Money 2020 in 2012 when the first Bitcoin. I knew the founders. I attended the conference, and I'm a traditionalist. I come out of finance. I mean, I invented two payment systems: pay at the table and the first mobile giving app. So I The problem is that there was no way to verify worth to cost. And I had an opportunity in that meeting to buy $5. I could have bought a Bitcoin. They were offering everyone that was in that session $5 for one Bitcoin. But there's different generations. I'm a baby boomer in my generation. You look at the millennials and the Generation Zers in their consumer habits, they are the ones that will push the final changeover to the digital currency. They're the ones pushing it now.
Tricking us into making us think that it's our idea.
Yeah, yeah,
It's the
yeah.
biggest trick in the book.
It is. It's total control. People don't understand that, we look to buy gold that's not chipped. And you have to ask the dealers on that because they're chipping gold. And so that tells me that you're going to be living in Blade Runner. I mean, that's how it's going to be. You're going to have craft that can go over a drone that will be able to pick up the signal from your transaction. God forbid should it be anything illegal. I mean, you'll have the feds on your door before you know it.
Incredibly evil genius to do that, to chip the gold. So
Total
anybody that
freaking
has,
control. I mean, you control the currency, and you think about it, currency is like electricity. It has a current to it. Now, if you're the regulator, and let's say you're a transformer that you can step down that entire process or step it up, and you're the one controlling the levers, you've got a lot of leverage.
absolutely. And then you'd be able to track and see where where there's large caches of gold in anyone's home. So basically you're not getting away with anything. Even if you
Well,
had a
here's
bunch of
what
gold, you're going to be tracked and traced, and they're going to know exactly where it is.
now, oddly enough, you have certain members of both political parties that are actually pushing back on this. Why? Well, let me give you the other side of the equation why it's a good thing. We have a government that's out of control right now in spending, but we have no way to physically audit it. Now, if you put every dollar as a digital and it has its own frequency, that is, you're transferring, let's say, 50 billion over to a European country, we can then begin to see, unless they come in and step on it, we can begin to track those dollars. Now, that presents a two-edged sword for those who want control, but yet they don't want to be under the microscope at the same time. Mm-hmm. It's a real sticky web we got here, because then in a lot of ways it would be incredibly, it would begin to reduce these monetary policies from the Fed that are antiquated and out of date. You don't fight inflation by raising interest rates. You do it by physical policy that allows responsibility. We don't have that with paper currency, or at least not in the sense that they're telling us. So it is the inevitable. I think it'll be here within a couple of years. I think certain China and Russia is already anticipating the collapse of the greenback. Now, if the IMF moves and the central bank moves away from the greenback, as from converting petrodollars into greenbacks, you have gold notes that are transferred into greenbacks. If that process is interrupted, then we've collapsed our currency. This is what digital currency will help prevent. Anyway.
So you think that the digital currency is going to come in before the dollar explodes?
I think they already got plan B ready up. I mean,
Okay.
the markets are closed for a day or two to adjust. They may not even close at all. I mean, if you look at certain stocks, if you look at certain chip stocks that are designed in these areas, yeah, they're doing very well. And as far as getting back to your question, as far as cryptocurrencies, they stumbled on themselves. And that's the problem, is that you have the consumer that no longer has the confidence in them. You have a generation, the Generation Zers, and who's after the Zers, Many of them are flat ass
10x.
broke today. Thank you. They were the new millionaires. Some were billionaires. Today, they're broke. And that's a hard lesson in reality. So you've got a segment of the market in the consumerism who's now leery of the easy money that was there. And so, and I've told people this. I was interviewed about 3 years ago on a radio station on this. One of the things in my mobile payment system, I work with the IRS. And I can tell you that the IRS has been looking at this whole crypto platform, because their report back to Congress is that, listen, there are billions of tax dollars that are being evaded because we can't plug into these networks. We can't come in here and monitor it. And many of them say that that's what's the problem with the FTX exchange, is that the feds got in there and began to say, whoa, wait a minute. Now you got value that you're spending, but yet you don't have the initial assets that would back that up. And sure enough, it collapsed.
Yeah, I see that. And I only see two kinds of scenarios happening here, though, Wayne. They either want a smooth transition or they want a chaotic transition. Now,
I think they
which
want
one?
the latter.
That's exactly right. Because if it's a chaotic transition, then that doesn't create as much opposition,
Mm,
right? Because if it's a
no.
smooth transition, then people are going to be like, oh, I don't want this digital backed currency, and we'll go out there and riot and there'll be a huge mess, right? But if you create a disastrous situation revolving around transitioning into a new currency, then that almost guarantees that everyone is going to be on board with a getting rid of the dollar and creating a new digital backed global currency.
Yeah. And I think that, when they started the concept, I guess we brought it in. I was in an investment conference in 2010. The idea of a true digital wallet. That exists today. I mean, Apple has Apple Pay, Google has Google Pay, and of course, you have these exchanges like Swipe, and you have PayPal. I mean, these are all digital domains. There's no hard currency that ever passes through any of these companies, but yet they pass through trillions of dollars in transactions. That's control.
And PayPal almost screwed up hardcore. I don't know if you remember here I think it was a couple of months ago or whatever, they came out with a statement that PayPal was going to start fining people thousands of dollars for speaking mis or disinformation online. Do you remember? Did you see those
Yeah, I
articles?
do. Yeah.
That they were going to do that, and then they quickly flipped it around because everyone just got rid of PayPal.
Well, you can't do that, number one. Yeah, you just can't. I had the opportunity to meet Peter Thiel, and it's been a privilege in my life to meet many of these innovators. I mean, because he was the part of the PayPal mafia, and here was a group of guys who came together and saw the handwriting on the wall, and look what they built. And what gets me, Ryder, is that many of these companies, they're less than a decade old. Yeah, that's how quickly we can be. Look at what most Americans, most of the world today. You can go into third-rate poverty countries, into like in the heart of Africa, and you find a television. Why? It's to tell the vision. And you know what they also have? They all got that cell phone,
They can't have anything else, but
Yeah,
they can't have food
Man, I'm
or
with
water or
Daddy.
clean water, but they can sure have a television and a cell phone. That's
exactly it. I mean, they may have a mud hut and what have you, but by golly, we're going to get the Bachelor in tonight.
Ship all those cell phones to Africa. They all need to have those.
Like I said, I was in the payment industry for the long time, and when I saw the first mobile transaction that took place in Africa, in this small little village, right there was the sign that, hey, this is the future and this is where it's going to be. Because, as the story goes, when you can do a mobile transaction in the middle of the Congo, you don't have dollars. Most of them never had any hard currency to begin with. They would trade in goods and services. But now you introduce a whole village to the opportunity to where you seed them. Each one has an account. Now you have a whole digital revolution taking place.
Well, it's also really interesting with the whole PayPal statements that they said that they were going to come out and, fine people $1,000 for speaking false information or misinformation or disinformation, which just shows and proves how much PayPal could possibly be tracking and collecting all of our data from our
Already are.
devices, right?
Yeah,
Because if they
yeah.
come out with a statement like that and is saying, "Oh, well, we're going to do that," then that means that they have been tracking and tracing and monitoring your device for almost everything that you've been saying
See, who
for
owns
however long.
PayPal? Google. Yeah, makes sense, But here's the thing, though, Ryder, is Musk threw the monkey wrench into the gears because I really do believe that the Twitter files have, if they hadn't been exposed, this machine was going to roll over us like a steamroller. But the problem is it's now stuck because we're finding this collusion taking place, and this has pissed off everybody. So monitoring speech and determine, as I have put the question out there, I'll put it out to Google, I'll put it out to anyone. And even as I called up my congressman, I said, who is the carekeeper of truth? And whose version of truth are we going by? Well, Mr. Steiger, that's a very good question. Yeah, I know that, jack off. Just tell me the answer, but no. Anyway, excuse me for that indiscretion.
Could it be possible that it's an AI that could possibly be running this truth and this what's classifying people's information as misinformation, disinformation, partial information? Because there's no way that there's enough employees at all of these companies to automatically flag all of this stuff like right off the bat. Because I've posted some things on Instagram and on Facebook that immediately get taken down. Like
Yeah,
right whenever I
that's
post it,
AI.
it automatically hits me and it takes the message off or gives me a ban or says that I can't post it or whatever. Instagram's a little bit better with that. They don't really ban you as much, but Facebook is horrible with it. Facebook will hit you with a ban for anything, right? And
Because it goes counter to their discourse, and then to me that's a false reality. I mean, and that's totalitarianism. So I don't support those platforms. Even on this one, thank goodness there's alternatives now coming because it's nuts. You're complying your values to some jerk off that you don't know where the hell they are. You don't even know how old they are. Most of these, what we're finding out, are in their early 20s. How does a 20-year-old have enough world experience to figure out in the nuances of communication? It doesn't make sense, but yet this is what everyone adapts to. And that's a scary thought.
absolutely, I agree. What do you think about Sophia the robot? I think we talked about this a few times on the show,
I
but
love her.
this is a very interesting topic. What do you think
I think
about it?
it is unfortunately going to be the preferred choice. I think with many people. I mean, they're already doing the studies in Japan, and because the Japanese seem to be much more adaptive to AI robotics. In fact, you can see in their culture for the last 50 years has been moving quite fast in robotics, and synthetic intelligence is what they call it. So we now know in the area of intimacy of relationships that they've been studying both male and females that have these as real as life robots. They're their mates. And the psychologists are kind of stunned because they're finding these individuals have very stable, very fulfilling relationships with a robot. Now, you think about this, the dynamics of living with someone. There's adjustments in personal habits, idioms, everything else. But if you have a robot that's more designed to your personality, that's been pre-programmed and can get updates, and meets your needs in every way of giving you compliments, giving you more self-confidence, and particularly in the area of intimacy, I mean, it's hard to argue against that.
Here's something that just kind of sparked my mind. What if this has been by design and they're trying to put these robots and these things into our life to fulfill some kind of need, right? Because there's depression and anxiety and all these different disorders that people seem to have like all the time, and loneliness is a very
Huge.
common one because we
Yeah.
desire connection as a human species. We desire, a connection and touch with another human being. Then I'm like, okay, well, what if these are like, what if these are viruses, right? Because if, whenever you look at the term a virus, people tend to equate a virus being with a sickness, right?
Hmm.
But is that real? Is that true? Like, why are we just equating viruses to just sickness, something that makes us ill? What if all of these things are viruses? What if depression is a virus? What if anxiety is a virus? What if all these mental health problems that people have are a virus and they've been created within people due to their circumstances and some sort of outside manipulation? So they've created all of these, you call them frequency viruses, because I think a lot of that is, it's interconnected there. I think that they've created certain kinds of frequencies to influence people to do certain things that they
Like
normally
falling in love.
wouldn't do. Exactly. What if love is a virus? I think we need to
Yeah, it is.
redefine the term of what a virus really is. It doesn't have to be something that makes you sick.
Well, actually, a virus is very good because if we didn't have viruses, we wouldn't have immune systems. That's how our immune system grows and gets stronger, is that, we have, as kids, you have, the mumps, you have, the chicken pox, and, all those, the ones that I grew up with. And, I was a carrier of strep throat as a kid. And so it was all these childhood diseases that we get that builds our immune systems as adults. I mean, yeah, I see this, and it's all like, it's the thought, Ryder, that who's the real intelligence here? Is it us or is it the virus? And then if you remember, Mr. Smith told Morpheus, he says, "You humans, you're a virus. Wherever you go, you alter the natural DNA and RNA of your environment." That's what we do. We inject our DNA. We are the environment. We are the virus. I am the walrus. Do 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 do.
And then also too, when you look at like our energetic field that we have around us, right? We all have like a toroidal energetic
Mm-hmm.
field around us, and it's supposed to expand out at least 6 feet in front of you. Well, to your fingertips, at least when you put your hands out in front of you. Barbara Brennan has written several books on this with depictions of how the energetic fields work. And also my friend Paul Knight has gotten into the toroidal field and stuff too. So whenever you're in a depression state, whenever you have anxiety, whenever have hate or anger or anything like that, your field closes in further on you, right? And that
Yeah.
makes it easier for these frequency viruses to penetrate your field. I think and they can rewrite the code
Yeah.
within your field to influence you, to plant thoughts, plant ideas into your head, and you would never know that it's not even coming from you, it's coming from an outside force.
I was looking at my library. There's a book over there called The God Virus. And the premise of the book is that all religions act like a virus. You get exposed to the virus. You suddenly become, because you haven't had exposure prior, that you succumb to the mind meld, the mind egregore that inserts itself into you. And then you have the expression they had a religious experience, which would be akin to the same thing of a virus taking over, now becoming the host and influencing that which is one time sentient. I do. I think there's a lot of truth to it.
Yeah, I think so too. And then, looking at, the egregore thing is a very
Oh,
interesting thing. And I think that our entire reality is just egregorical. And
yes, it is.
it's easy for people to influence that reality because all they've done is put out that thought, that idea, that energy into that thought form. And then that thought form just takes on a life of its own, and then it just continuously perpetuates itself
It's
up and
like
on
those
to
internet challenges. That is the most hard evidence of what an egregore can do. You have the bucket challenge and everything, and suddenly it becomes a trend and a wave, and you're looking at this, and it takes on a life of itself. Yeah. Of course, they die when humans no longer give homage or pay attention to them.
they just fade off into the ether. Yeah.
Bye.
Well, Wayne, thanks so much for coming on. I appreciate you a lot, brother. It was a wonderful conversation.
Oh, Ryder, I enjoy it all the time. It's fun to be able to exchange thought energies with others that are not restrictive in their thought structures. And talking with you is like a breath of fresh air. I enjoy it all the time. It's just delightful.
Thanks so much, Wayne. I
Take
appreciate
another
you.
hit.
One more.
One more. Thank you very much.
I have to bring you back on soon.
And I have you over on my side. I always love it. Bring in that perspective. I love it. And you're an active group on our little community, and we certainly appreciate it.
Thank you. I'd love to do that. Just let me know. I'm available pretty much anytime. So just let me know when you want me on,
Good.
and
I'll send the invite out.
I'll come over. Let people know where they can find you online. Plug your YouTube channel really quick.
Wayne Steiger. You can find me on YouTube, Odysee, Rumble, and Spreaker. All the ones. I'm going to be start doing my Steiger perspective over on Rumble again, and so I'll announce that. Got threatened the last time; they had to take it down.
That's a shame. I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. You
it's
haven't
time
done
to.
it for a while. It's been.
No, we had death threats, so yeah.
Wow.
Guess I poked that hornet's nest a little too much.
And the owner of the website that you're promoting it from, or that you were hosting the show on, kind of.
It will be on Rumble. I'm just going to do a
Okay.
live Rumble show once a week, just to revive the Steiger perspective.
Awesome. That'll be great. The links to all of Wayne's information will be in the description of this video. Appreciate each and every one of you. Thanks for listening and watching. Please be sure to hit the thumbs up to help the channel out in the YouTube algorithms. Share, subscribe, hit the bell icon as well for notifications. The links to all of my information is in the description as well. And remember, we're not only in a spiritual war, but a war on humanity. Stay aware, stay alert, keep loving your heart for everyone, stay safe out there. And if you can see through the illusion, you are the solution. See you guys next time.